Honourable members, shall we pray? Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favour upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic, endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labours of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honourable members, we don't have any message from the President. Neither do we have any message or communication from the Speaker. So we will turn to item 4 in today's order paper. That is correction of votes and proceedings and official report. We will start with correction of votes and proceedings. We will begin from page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page number 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, sorry for bringing you back. Fortunately, the Honorable Lydia Sarah Malasan is in the chamber. Item 8 on statements, digit all. I couldn't have been here to see how you catch your words, digital and digit all. So tell us whether you want us to say digit all Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality in commemoration of International Women's Day, which falls on 8th March each year. The digital, I can understand digital, but digital, if it's her technical term, her own coinage, I have no difficulty, but just to hear her, whether this was a caption of her statement. Thank you, Mr.
Member for Tamale South, which page are you?
Mr. Speaker, page 9.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. That is a theme for
Honorable Leader, I haven't called you. Yes, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So that is a theme for this year's celebration. Dig it all. Yes, global. Yes. Thank you.
Very well. So we move to page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. Page 19. Page 20. Page 21. Page 22. And finally, page 23. Yes, Honorable Member for Fitu and my Deputy Majority Leader.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, if you go to page 9 and 10, particularly page 10, the Honorable Member for Bolgatanga, who
Leader, may you speak up a bit for me? May you speak up?
Mr. Speaker, I'm saying that with regards to page 9 and 10, particularly page 10, the seconder of the motion, who is the Honorable Member for Bolgatanga Central, and is being correctly captured here as Deputy Ranking Member of the Finance Committee, Honorable Isaac Adongo. Mr. Speaker, the media captured it as Ranking Member, and they've been saying so ever since. I just want that correction to be well noted, because we don't have a committee's report that has redesigned his rank or promoted him to ranking member yet. That we don't have for the records of Parliament. So I just wanted this to be taken care of. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader, I believe the votes and proceedings has captured it rightly.
Rightly so, Mr. Speaker. So that is why I'm saying that from this record, I just want the public to rely on our record. That's
Leader,
all I'm trying to say.
Leader, my issue is we are not dealing with the public. We are dealing
Mr.
with...
Speaker, it is important. Mr. Speaker, public education is very important. The work we do here should not be misrepresented, because the media captured him as being the ranking member on finance. But I'm saying that we have done the correct thing, and they lift what we've done here for public consumption. I just want... Oh, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, please.
Mr. Speaker, it's part of our duties to educate the public and to inform them. All I'm saying is that there is nothing like acting ranking. There is nothing, because, Mr. Speaker, we haven't received a report on any committee reshuffle yet. So I just want the media to take note of the records here, that this is Parliament's record. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are doing votes and proceedings corrections. On page 10 of the votes and proceedings, it is correctly captured. The MP, Member of Parliament for Bogatanga, is the deputy ranking for finance. Mr. Speaker, there's no error. And so let it be clear. The Honorable case after forcing the minority leader is still the ranking of finance. And the Honorable member is the deputy ranking. And God willing, he will be the ranking. God willing.
Honorable members, in the absence of any corrections, the votes and proceedings of Friday, the 10th of March 2023 is hereby adopted as the true record of proceedings. Honorable members, Honorable Dr. Sandari, honorable members, I have in my hands the official report of Monday, the 25th July 2022. Monday, 25th July 2022. And I repeat, Monday, 25th July 2022 official report. Honorable members, in the absence of any corrections, the official report of Monday, the 25th July 2022 is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. Yes. Leader, any indication as to whether you should vary the order, or we?
Mr. Speaker, we are ready for the continuation of the debate, and Honorable Frida Prempe is ready to begin for us, followed by Honorable Paul Chum Burma.
So, honorable members, it means we are varying the order. Honorable members, we are varying the order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we've agreed that we vary the order and start the debate on the state of the nation.
Yes,
Mr. Speaker, just for the records,
honorable members, there's too much noise in the chamber. Please. Yes, leader.
Mr. Speaker, just for the records, the Honorable Minister for Education appropriately transmitted a communication from his office to your office, indicating why he would be unavoidably absent. Mr. Speaker, that we have discussed as leadership and we have no objection. It's the basis for varying the order of business to enable us proceed with the debate. So, Mr. Speaker, that should reflect in our records. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, indeed, the Deputy Majority Leader informed us about the Minister's request that he will not be present. Mr. Speaker, let the record be very clear about. I'm sure that the Deputy Majority Leader got the information this morning. After we have scheduled the Minister with 10 questions this morning, Mr. Speaker, our standing orders are very clear, order 60 and 64. Clear processes involving sending the information to the minister and giving him time to prepare. And when a day is set for the questions to be answered, only to be notified that the minister cannot. Mr. Speaker, that is not very helpful. That does not help the work of Parliament. And that must be said. So on that note, Mr. Speaker, I think the minister must be notified by the clerk on when he will come and answer the questions. But we should do everything possible to communicate to the ministers that if they cannot answer questions, they must have to write to Parliament ahead of time, not on the morning of when the questions are to be answered. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. So, honourable members, I'm inviting you to page 8. Page 8 in today's order paper. And we are going to continue the debate on the motion to thank His Excellency the President for the message he delivered to us and for that matter to the nation on the 8th March 2022. So on that note, I will invite Honorable Member for Doma East, Honorable Paul Chumberima, to begin the debate.
Mr. Speaker, I made an application to vary our list for Frida Prempe, Honorable Frida Prempe, to begin.
Very well, very well. Honorable Member for Doma East, hold on a bit. Hold on a bit. Let me give the floor to your senior first. So, Honorable Dr. Frida Prempe, Member for Tano North, to begin the debate in thanking the President for his message that he delivered to the nation. Yes, Honorable Member, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to thank the President for his visionary, inspiring, and reassuring message delivered on a very special day. That's the International Women's Day. I would also like to thank the President for acknowledging the role of women in the socio-economic development of any country. Mr. Speaker, the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Ukraine war cannot be ruled out in any equation. Mr. Speaker, across the world, developed countries are all struggling to find their feet. But by dint of hard work, Mr. Speaker, through it all, perseverance and focus, through the pandemic, in the midst of challenges, this President, the MPP government, has been able to brace the odds. Mr. Speaker, the President said it emphatically that he has not been reckless in borrowing and spending. Mr. Speaker, the debt that we are servicing today did not start from 2017. Mr. Speaker, in the midst of all these challenges, we have chalked a lot of successes. As I sat through the debate last week, I heard most of my colleagues from the majority side talking about roads infrastructure, and my colleagues on the other side were trying to say as if that we've not constructed anything. We will tout that we have constructed more roads than the NDC. We will tout that we've been able to add over 15,000 kilometers to our roads infrastructure. Whether feeder roads, whether highways, whether urban roads, we have done more than the NDC did in the last few years. Mr. Speaker, we have added a lot of bitumen surfacing, asphalt overlays, partial reconstruction and construction. All my colleagues sitting on the other side have benefited one way or the other from roads infrastructure under the Akufo-Addo government. They cannot tell their constituents that nothing has been done in their constituencies. Mr. Speaker, We have also built more bridges in this country than the NDC. And that is the state of the nation address. Mr. Speaker, even in terms of railways...
Hold on. What is it?
Mr. Speaker, the other time you said that there's not going to be...
Nobody is going to interrupt you.
So let me finish.
Okay. Yes, what is it?
Mr. Speaker, my colleague said that all of us here have benefited from the road infrastructure being done by the president. I want you have to know.
Honorable
have never benefited from the road.
Honorable member.
So when he's talking, it should be not all of us.
Honorable member.
So far as body is concerned, we have not benefited. Just to guard
Honorable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, last week arrangements still persist. We are not going to entertain any point of order, any intervention. If you have anything, just jot it down. When it comes to your turn, then you raise the issue. If I had known this, I wouldn't have even allowed you. So, Honorable Frida, you have the floor. Continue.
Mr. Speaker, I'm even surprised at my colleagues. Recently, we were in Ho, and I was amazed at the level of road construction from Accra to Ho within Ho and other parts of this country. So they cannot tell me that they've not benefited from Akufo-Addo's government year of roads. It's happened in Accra, in all the regions across this country. Mr. Speaker, the president rolled out a very... Mr. Speaker, road construction is capital intensive. And it's like pregnancy, you cannot hide it. It's evident, it's there for everybody to see. Mr. Speaker, the president rolled out a very important policy in this country.
Honorable Sam. No. I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't take it. I said if you have anything, jot it down.
No, but the people of Ningo Pram are listening, Mr. Speaker. She's lying.
Why?
Mr. Speaker, my colleague just said I'm lying. I think that is unparliamentary and he has to withdraw it.
Honorable Sam George. Honorable Sam George. Honorable members, please, let's take note. I said it last week, I'm saying today. We are not entertaining any point of order. He didn't mention your name. But you didn't mention Sam George.
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Frida, let's hear you. Continue.
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised my colleague always wants his name to be in the hazard for wrong purposes. I'm not mentioning Ningo Pram, but of course there's been some road construction in Accra and all over. Did I mention road like Ningo Pram? Why do you want your name to be mentioned? Don't take part of my time. Mr. Speaker, the president rolled out a very important policy. That's the free senior high school. He rolled out another important policy, free TVET. Because of that, enrollment has increased. And enrollment, because it has increased, has to come with infrastructure. We've seen massive educational infrastructure across the country. We've seen massive infrastructure in all TVET schools, in all the 34 TVET schools in Ghana, including mine in Yamfo. My good friend, Honorable Haruna, would attest to the fact when he visits Yamfo, a technical school, you will see the difference. Hostels, resource centers, ICT centers, name it, computer laboratories, all across the country. And that is the state of the nation that we find ourselves in. Building infrastructure, whether health infrastructure, whether educational infrastructure, whether roads infrastructure, the president is working very hard to ensure that Ghanaians get development at their doorstep. Mr. Speaker, because of the good policy, now TVET enrollment has even quadrupled from 13,000 in 2021 in less than 1 year to 47,000. And all these people are going to come out and train other people in their areas. Mr. Speaker, we've also rolled out massive social intervention programs. The agricultural sector has seen a lot of boosts, planting for food and jobs, cocoa pollination. Mr. Speaker, we were in this country when cholera broke out. Unfortunately, it took the lives of over 200 innocent people due to insanitary conditions in this country. When the President Akufo-Addo's government came, in less than 4 years, we've been able to increase toilet facilities from 33% to 59%. Have you heard of any cholera outbreak recently? Have you heard of any cholera outbreak recently? That is massive development, Mr. Speaker. Let me also add that in the midst of all these challenges, Mr. Speaker, during the COVID, a lot of women lost their jobs, especially in the tourism sector, in the micro sector, in the small scale and industry sector. But this government put systems and structures in place to support Ghanaians with a tune of 518 million cedis as grants and loans. And I'm happy to know that out of this lot, about 60% of the monies went to women. Mr. Speaker, in addition, during the COVID, about 58,041 people were recruited to support the health workers. And I must say that in the midst of all these challenges, all these 58,000 and over people have been absorbed into the Ghana Health Service workforce. Mr. Speaker, we've all enjoyed peace and security in this country. And I believe that is because of the systems and structures that the President has put in place to support the security services. We've enjoyed 30 years of peaceful democracy. Mr. Speaker, police visibility is all over the place for everybody to see. Mr. Speaker, recently, the President delivered 100 pickups, 600 motorbikes, 6 armored personnel carriers, and in the first in our history, a dedicated helicopter to the Ghana Police Service to support them. Mr. Speaker, it's true we are not in normal times, but through it all, we've made a lot of strides. I was talking about roads infrastructure, and they were heckling me. Go to Popiasi to see the interchange there. Go to Tamamoto Way. Go to Obechebi Damte Phase 1. Go to Tamale. Go to East Legon. Go to Nungwa interchange. Go to the Flowerport interchange. Go to Takoradi. Go to Pong. Go to Savannah. All these infrastructure have been put in place. Mr. Speaker, in some jurisdictions, post-COVID is so difficult that people even have to queue to buy fruits and vegetables, even oil from shops. But in our part of the world, by dint of hard work, Mr. President has been able to put systems and structures in place to ensure that we always have food on our tables. We've not seen anybody queuing on the market to buy food. We've not seen anybody queuing in any of our supermarkets to buy food. We've not seen anybody queuing to buy fuel. We've not seen anybody rationing fuel in this country. Through it all, even though it's been difficult, he's been able to manage this economy very well. Mr. Speaker, we've not experienced any doomsday. I believe we were in South Africa recently. You know what is happening in South Africa. We were in Germany last year. You know what is happening in Germany. Even oil, you can't afford to, you can't buy 2 or 3 bottles at the same time. What do we see here? Apart from all this, we've been able to secure support for the youth to also find space wherever they find themselves. Mr. Speaker, during the COVID, the President put structures in place to ensure that our educational system is not interrupted. The senior high school, the free senior high school, the basic education systems were put in place, even during the COVID, to ensure that they run checks, to ensure that people will not just sit at home and be idling. But we're able to go through this. We've seen the roads infrastructure, as I talked about. Mr. Speaker, we were in this country when nursing and teacher training allowance, somebody said he was not going to pay. We were in this country when somebody said, even chalk, we cannot even provide chalk. But even in the midst of all these challenges, look at the massive infrastructure that is being rolled out. Look at the health infrastructure that is being rolled out. Look at the educational infrastructure that is being rolled out. Look at the railway infrastructure that is being rolled out. And we are not denying anybody of anything. Mr. Speaker, we have enjoyed security in this country because our security services are well equipped And I heard my Minister for Defense telling all of us that their salaries have also been increased. They are happy and they are working very well to ensure that we continue to maintain peace and security in this country. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to thank Mr. President for being so truthful to us as a country, for letting Ghanaians know that all is not lost. Through it all, in the midst of all these challenges, we are still making it. We are still constructing our roads. We are still paying salaries. We paid teachers when they even sat at home during the COVID. We did not say, as it was done in other jurisdictions, that because the teachers are not working at the moment, they are not going to be paid. The president paid them. The president paid health allowance. The president is still paying salaries. And he's still working to ensure that all our infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, we live in a dynamic world. This country is not static. So through urbanization, through modernization, through the movement of people and properties, definitely people are even moving out from outside to the outskirts of Accra. So we'll continue to construct more roads, we'll continue to construct more drains, we'll continue to construct more sea defense, we'll continue to empower women and children in this country, we'll continue to enhance our TVET schools, we'll continue to support the health sector, we'll continue to pay salaries, we'll continue to enhance the agri sector so that we all have a very good place to live in. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the President once again for making sure that the military, and for that matter the security service, the national security, he has provided a lot of equipment, a lot of logistics, and the peace we are all enjoying here is because of some of these structures, some of these equipment, some of these logistics that they need to work, and dialogue and compromise. We are enjoying security and peace in this country. Mr. Speaker, once again, I want to thank the President for being so candid with us. Mr. President did not hide words. His submission was evidence-based. Everything he's done in this country is there for all of us to know. And I can assure you, all of us, and you know, that each one of us sitting here, we have all benefited from this government one way or the other, in terms of health delivery, in terms of road delivery, in terms of infrastructure. We have all benefited. If you have not benefited from this government, just let your people, tell your constituents that 2024 election is not going to be a do or die affair, but it's going to be an evidence-based campaign. And Mr. President has once again assured us in his presentation to the House that this is a phase, and with every fiber, that's the emphasis, every fiber of my being, I am certain that this too shall pass. We have done it before, and we will do it again. No matter the situation that we are going through as a country, no matter the challenges we are going through after COVID and Ukraine war, no matter the economic situation we find ourselves in, we are not rationing fuel, we are not rationing food, we are not queuing for fuel, there's no doom so, there's peace and security, infrastructure is going on, roads infrastructure is going on, railways is going on, health is going on. And that is the state of the nation that the President told us about. And he wants all of us as Ghanaians to be patriotic and support the President so that come 2024, he will continue to roll out more infrastructure for this country. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity giving me to thank the President for appearing before this House to give us the State of the Nation address. And like I said, we have massive digitization going on in this country, and we have experienced massive peace and security. I think that everything that this government has done is not transient. It's evidence-based, and it's there for everybody to see. And the good people of Ghana are going to continue to vote for the MPP based on the good work that we've done, even in the midst of all these challenges. I spoke to you about cholera. I was even thinking that if Ebola had broken up at that time, what would have happened to Ghanaians? Because even cholera, we couldn't contain cholera, and we lost innocent lives over 200. This president has been able to contain the situation of COVID, even though we've lost some beloved friends, we've lost some few friends, but above all, through it all, we've been able to make sure that this country is still running the way it was before COVID and Ukraine war. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity.
That term is almost up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. But let me once again remind Ghanaians that all is not lost. We still have hope, and this too shall pass. We should all continue to support the MPP government to continue to deliver on our promises. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, please, I'm monitoring the time. The instructions that were given out is that ministers of state are having 15 minutes. Ranking and committee chair are having 15 minutes. So I was monitoring. The time is here. He is a minister of state. That's why I gave him 15 minutes. Please. Please allow me to do what is right. That's the instructions I was given, and I'm following it religiously. Please. So now we come to Honourable Member for Honourable Akando.
I'm most grateful, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the message on the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, I heard my colleague who just spoke saying that we have peace and security in this country. Mr. Speaker, I wonder whether or not she has been in this country within the past 1 month. Mr. Speaker, I wonder whether or not she's aware of what is going on in Boku. Mr. Speaker, I wonder whether or not she's aware of what is going on at Ashama. Mr. Speaker, I wonder whether or not she's aware of what is going on in Wa. Mr. Speaker, all is not well with this country. Mr. Speaker, the state of Ghana is that of utter shock and disbelief. Mr. Speaker, in the State of the Nation address delivered by His Excellency the President on page 3, the last paragraph, he stated that he was going to talk about health and infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, conspicuously missing was Agenda 111. Mr. Speaker, and I am not surprised that he didn't talk about Agenda 111 in details because all is not well with the Agenda 111. Mr. Speaker, at the 8th COVID-19 update delivered by the President, he promised the good people of this country about the construction of health facilities in this country. The Speaker, the project was delayed and they commenced the project somewhere in August 2021. The Speaker, during the sword cutting ceremony, Mr. President had this to say, and with your permission, I quote the President. The Speaker, he said, and I quote, "Each hospital is being constructed at a cost of 16.88 million, i.e. 12.88 million for construction and 4 million for medical equipment, and all the hospitals are to be completed in 8 months, and works will begin on the regional and other hospitals in the later part of 2021. Mr. Speaker, this is what the President said when he was cutting sword for the commencement of Agenda 111. Mr. Speaker, again, during the 28th update, the President changed his position. And with your permission, I want to quote again. This is what he said. The President said, "Work is currently underway, and therefore the end of my tenure of office on 7th January 2025, all 111 hospitals would have been commissioned." Mr. Speaker, this position was affirmed in last year's State of the Nation address, that before the President hands over on the 7th January 2025, all the 111 hospitals would have been delivered. Mr. Speaker, when the President speaks, he must be speaking the truth, nothing but the truth. Mr. Speaker, as far as Ghana is concerned, with our President, when he speaks, we don't know whether or not he's speaking the truth. Mr. Speaker, this statement turned out to be false, untrue. And I say so because, Mr. Speaker, the Agenda 111 Secretariat made a presentation to the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, and they were led by the Chief Director of the Presidency. The Speaker, at the meeting, this is the forecast they gave to the committee. The Speaker, don't forget that Mr. President is saying that he will deliver all the 111 hospitals before he leaves office. The Speaker, at the committee level, this is what they had to say. The Speaker, they said the completion forecast. They needed $300 million to be able to complete 20% of the project in 2024. 20%. 20%, the Speaker. The Speaker, again, 20%. Mr. Speaker, the next bullet point, they said that 20% of the hospitals could be completed in 2025. Could. The Speaker, the next one, says 30% of the hospitals could be completed by 2027. Mr. Speaker, again, he said 30% of the hospitals could be completed after 2027 when Mr. President is no longer the President of the Republic of Ghana. Why would you say you will deliver all the 111 hospitals whilst it is not true? Mr. Speaker, the real state of the Agenda 111 is that millions of dollars have been given to contractors and yet they are not on site. Millions of dollars, Mr. Speaker.
Millions of dollars. Sites not being.
Mr. Speaker, I'll give you examples. If you go to a place like Akrofom in the Akrofom district, about $839 million has been given to the contractor, yet the contractor was not at the site at our last visit, the committee's last visit. The Speaker, again, Adeso, in the Upper West Akim, about $1,078,000 had been given to the contractor, and yet the contractor was not at site. US dollars, Mr. Speaker.
Not even declared.
Mr. Speaker, again, at Kwabrakwa in Obuasi East District, about $1,078,000 has been given to the contractor, and yet the contractor is not on site, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Jessica is no exception. So this is the clear state of the nation, where millions of dollars have been given to contractors and individuals, and yet no work is being done. This is a fact, and nobody can contest it, Mr. Speaker. This goes to the waste and the corruption we have been talking about all this while. Mr. Speaker, let me move on to another very sensitive issue. Mr. Speaker, in this day and age, one would have expected that we should not be talking about outbreak of measles on this floor of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, measles and tuberculosis, polio are not like COVID, which we just discovered. Mr. Speaker, we started fighting these diseases as far back in 1977. Mr. Speaker, especially with the introduction of the expanded program on immunization introduced by the World Bank. Mr. Speaker, as recent as October 2022, we had outbreak of measles in Karaga, in Ushegu, in Tamale, and its environs. This is smacks of incompetence and lack of forward planning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we sit in this house and we approve the National Health Insurance Formula every year. In the National Health Insurance Formula, we make provisions for the procurement of these vaccines. Mr. Speaker, we realize that these releases have been done, and yet we don't have vaccines in this country. Mr. Speaker, it will interest you to know that we have not less than 10 vaccines, and most of these vaccines are being sponsored by Gavi, and we are supposed to sponsor only 3, 100%. Mr. Speaker, and only 3, we cannot buy the 3. If we are asked to buy the 13, can we buy the 13? Mr. Speaker, the president on this floor of the House said that we had recorded no death. The minister also repeated on this floor that no death has been recorded. Mr. Speaker, that is again palpable falsehood. Mr. Speaker, according to the Northern Regional Pediatrician at Tamale Teaching Hospital, Professor Anum Al-Hassan, Mumin Al-Hassan, Mr. Speaker, he says that we have recorded about 5 fatalities. And what is even worse is that, Mr. Speaker, we cannot even get reagents to confirm tests at Nubuchi. This is the state of the country. It is the state of the country. These are facts. We cannot even get reagents to confirm tests, hundreds, if not thousands of test samples that have been sent to Nubuchi. Mr. Speaker, we have been told by the president when he was complaining, just like me, he was whining and lamenting about the issue, and he never provided any solution when he appeared on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, on Saturday, we heard that Ghana has taken delivery of some vaccines, but what they didn't add was that these vaccines were coming from Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, these vaccines were coming from Nigeria. Of course, I have absolutely no problem if FDA confirms that these are good vaccines. But Mr. Speaker, the bigger question is that how come Nigeria has excess vaccines and we don't have? How come that Nigeria has excess vaccines and we don't have the vaccines? Mr. Speaker, I think that we should not even have gotten here in the first place. And, Mr. Speaker, more to the point, the vaccines that we are taking delivery of can only last for 6 weeks. So we should not be making noise that we have come out of the situation. We should rather, Mr. Speaker, be thinking about how we can get more vaccines to save the vulnerable babies in this country. Mr. Speaker, per the 1992 Constitution, everybody, including the babies, they have the right to good health care in this country. Because the president himself, the vice president, the minister responsible for health, they all had the opportunity to get vaccines to vaccinate their children, including their grandchildren. So every child in this country deserves to be vaccinated. Mr. Speaker, that is the real state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, when my colleague was speaking, he talked about the fact that His Excellency said they had engaged about 58,000 workers in the health sector. Mr. Speaker, the real state of the nation is that the professionals, the health professionals are living in homes. Mr. Speaker, last year, half of last year, Mr. Speaker, not less than 3,000 nurses left the shores of this country. There are some specialists who have left, and now we don't even, those in charge of feet and what have you, we don't even have any specialists in this country due to the hard economic realities in this country. Mr. Speaker, let me quote these numbers. In the 2021 budget, the workforce of the health sector was reported to be 251,527. Mr. Speaker, in the 2023 budget, it was reported to be 182,233. Mr. Speaker, if you are employing low-skilled people to help in contact tracing, and you are losing more than 69,000 people, what have you done? Mr. Speaker, the real state of the nation is that today, the nurses who are doing their rotations have not been paid for the past 18 months. That's the real state of the nation. That is the real state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, I think that we should be speaking the truth as leaders of this country. And, Mr. Speaker, the president made frantic efforts to justify the recklessness with which they handled the COVID expenditure. But unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, because Ghanaians are discerning, it fell on deaf ears. Mr. Speaker, how can you justify that if they spend 32 million Ghana cedis on seminars and meetings, there's nothing wrong with it? How can a president say this? Mr. Speaker, how can you say that in a matter of less than 1 year, if they spend more than 200 million on hand sanitizers, there's nothing wrong with it? Mr. Speaker, how can you say that we pay more than $600,000 to be taking ambulance
as far back in January 2022, and up to now, we've not had our money. We've not had the ambulances. There's nothing wrong with it. Mr. Speaker, how can you tell us that we have paid not less than $82 million to receive Johnson vaccines? We have not had the vaccines, and we have also not had our money. Mr. President says that there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. Mr. Speaker, I think that we must be serious as a country and be doing what is expected of us as leaders. We cannot be doing things as usual. Mr. Speaker, again, in a matter of 1 to 2 years, not less than 22 billion from various quarters, including IMF and the World Bank, has been pumped into this economy because of COVID. Mr. Speaker, if you get 22 billion in your economy because of COVID, you can certainly not blame the ills in the economy on COVID, because COVID gave us money. Mr. Speaker, COVID gave us a lot of money.
Honourable member, you should begin to land.
Mr. Speaker, certainly the attempt by the president to always be at the forefront in clearing his appointees is unbecoming of the president. Mr. Speaker, I think that this country, the real state of the country is that the country is sick. The country is bleeding in the hands of the president and the vice president, Dr. Baudi Bawumia. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. It is now the turn. It is now the turn of Honourable Member for Domai East, Honourable Trim Berima.
I thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the motion that was ably moved by my Deputy Majority Leader, that is Honourable House. Thanks His Excellency, the President, for the message on the state of the nation, which was delivered to the good people of Ghana through Parliament. Mr. Speaker, all is well with this country. Mr. Speaker, all is well. And that is my senior colleague Akando saying all is not well. I find it a bit strange because he knows that all is well with him. Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt that Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, in person to Article 67, delivered a message which every Ghanaian has accepted this message as an inspiring message, as a message of hope, and a message that we all can relate to. And Honorable Akando knows very well that he is able to relate to that. Mr. Speaker, indeed, the President was genuine, was truthful, and the President was able to accept the fact that we are in challenging times. But in all this, Mr. Speaker, the President also has proven that the country has been put on a path that is heading towards a point that we will all enjoy. And that is why all is well. Mr. Speaker, in a message of His Excellency, he spoke about a lot of things, including energy and everything that is making this country a better country. Mr. Speaker, in terms of energy, before His Excellency took the reins of this country, we were in shambles. We were in doomsday. We were struggling. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, in 2016, this House, when they brought a policy to curtail doomsday, they said we should put off our deep freezers. They said we should use one mobile phones. They said we should not be charging phones anyhow. That was the way that they wanted to handle a challenge that emanated from the country. Mr. Speaker, at that time, borders were not closed. At that time, ports were not closed. At that time, we were not asked to stay in our rooms. But they were struggling. We were still struggling to handle these issues. During COVID times, Mr. Speaker, when challenges were high, when we have been asked to stay in our homes, when borders have been closed, when ports have been closed, Mr. Speaker, we have been able to even increase our electricity support from 79 to 88.5%. Mr. Speaker, that is a good governance. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, the President in his statement made it clear that by 2024, 90% of our Ghanaians will enjoy electricity, regardless of the challenges that we are facing. That is a good governance, and that is the true state of this country. Mr. Speaker, to ensure that industrial companies to enjoy stable light, to ensure that our industry and our sector goes well. As we see, Mr. Speaker, we are replacing all the old light cables across the western corridor, the eastern corridor, the coastal corridor, and the middle corridor. We are replacing those lines, Mr. Speaker. This is to ensure that industry are well prepared, to ensure that the country is put on a stable line. This is a good governance. This is the true state of the country, and all is well. Mr. Speaker, if you go to Nigeria, a country that is very close to us, Mr. Speaker, they are queuing for fuel. Mr. Speaker, Kenya, they are queuing for fuel. Not too long ago, even France, they were queuing for fuel. But if you come to Ghana and you visit any of our filling stations, they are relaxed, they are enjoying, because there is no pressure. No one is queuing for fuel in this country. This is due to good governance and the good work done by His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, clearly showing that this country is well, and this is the true state of our country. Mr. Speaker, if you take the gold for oil policy that His Excellency mentioned in his message, indeed, Mr. Speaker, it is a good policy. We've started enjoying the success of this policy. After December, we were having petrol, we were buying petrol at 20 and diesel around 20. Mr. Speaker, Star Oil, as we speak, is selling at 13.8. This is the true state of the country. This is what we are saying. The country is doing well, and all is well. Honorable Akando, all is well. Mr. Speaker, my brothers there knows very well that in challenging times like this, you should expect everybody quarreling. Like as they said, we should quarrel and not do anything having money. But in challenging times, Mr. Speaker, this government ensured that electricity was available to every Ghanaian. Water was available to every Ghanaian. It was difficult times. In other countries, they were struggling. And this is what the president that we have today has done. This is what we call good governance, and this is the true state of our country. Mr. Speaker, the last time when His Excellency was talking about roads, my senior colleague, Honorable Reketegan, was questioning about some of the roads. But immediately, the Minister of Roads, who is here today, brought a press release out to set the record straight. I've not seen anybody challenging those, challenging that press release. No one is challenging that press release. telling us that the roads that we've constructed can visibly be seen. You can walk on it and feel good. You drive on it to your various constituencies and you are okay. This is what we call a true State of the Nation address. My brother Chitewe knows very well that going to Sola was struggling, difficult. But now he enjoys smooth ride. This is the true state of our country. And this is what we call good governance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in terms of challenges, just around the United Kingdom, Edinburgh, recently, the people we call Bola people, they were going on strike. If you go to Edinburgh at a certain point, they went on strike. Waste collectors went on strike. Bus drivers, train engineers, they were all on strike because the country was struggling. As at that time, Mr. Speaker, we were paying COLA, we were paying salaries. Members of parliament, members of parliamentary staff, their phone were beeping every month. That is what we call a good governance, and that is the true state of our country. Mr. Speaker, free SHS has not been abandoned. Free SHS is going on well. This is what we call the true state of the nation, and this is what we call a good governance. Mr. Speaker, in concluding, Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by quoting something from the second stanza of the national anthem. And Mr. Speaker, with your leave. Hail to the name, O Ghana. Today we make our solemn vow, steadfast to build together a nation strong in unity. Mr. Speaker, this is what our national anthem is saying, that we, the representatives of the people, have made a solemn vow to build this country in unity. Upon that the minister, His Excellency, is calling upon us that for him to be able to build this country, we should come together to help him to approve his policies. We should come together to help him to approve his ministers. And that is the vow that you, Mr. Chiwati, and I, we've made to our constituents that we represent in this room, that we will ensure that we build this country in unity. Mr. Speaker, let us count our blessings. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, let's count our blessings and name them one by one. His Excellency, the President's message on the nation of the nation is a true
Honorable, your time is up.
Of our state and must be commended by all. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me now come to Honorable James Agaga. Honorable, you are ranking. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I proceed, I'd like to make an appeal to the Honorable Minister for Defense not to interject, because on Friday, when he took his turn to debate, there were no interjections, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, doubles as the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces. When he appeared before this House to deliver the message on the state of the nation, he touched on a gamut of issues, including the security sector. In touching on the security sector, Mr. Speaker, the President merely touted what he would call his achievements. And in the course of the debate in this House, Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Defense actually took the matter to another level by further touting what he claimed were unprecedented achievements in the security sector under the stewardship of President Akufo-Addo. But, Mr. Speaker, I was flabbergasted when I sat down quietly and listened to the President for more than 1.5 hours as Commander-in-Chief of this Republic, Mr. Speaker, one would have expected that Mr. President would have told us the state of security in our country before talking about procurements done under his watch for the improvement of the delivery of services by the armed forces and the security agencies. He neglected to do so, much to the chagrin of Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, what is the state of our security right now? Boko, the age-old Boko crisis has escalated. There have been so many killings, many people have lost their lives in Boko. One would have expected that as Commander-in-Chief, the principal guarantor of the peace and security of our country, President Akufo-Addo would have at least said a word about the age-old Boko conflict. I have the statement in my hands. There is no single paragraph on Boko, Mr. Speaker. And yet, Mr. President is Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces. Then again, Mr. Speaker, we all witnessed what happened in Ashaman a few days ago. And the incident that happened in Ashaman actually preceded the delivery of the message on the state of the nation by Mr. President. But for the benefit of those who may not have followed the news about happenings in Ashaman, a soldier was murdered in cold blood. Then the armed forces reacted. The reaction of the armed forces resulted in excesses. They themselves have admitted that their reactions resulted in excesses, leading to the abuse of fundamental human rights in Ashaman. Mr. Speaker, as Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces, the President was duty-bound to say a word about Ashaman. As Commander-in-Chief, because rights had been violated, including the murder of a soldier, Mr. President simply just didn't find space in the 1.5 hours delivery to at least console the family of the bereaved soldier, and also to express regret about the abuses of the rights of the people of Ashaman. Mr. Speaker, that was unfortunate. The President simply did not live up to expectation as Commander-in-Chief, and I would admonish him to find space and address the nation on Boko and Ashaman. It is an imperative, and he must honor the imperatives, Mr. Speaker, of addressing those two critical issues, because at the moment, they are the two most disturbing security issues that have bedeviled our country over the past few days. The last time, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Mahama Yaraga, MP for Boko Central, was in this house. He came to this house and made a statement about happenings in Boko. At least that should have served as a guide for Mr. Speaker to at least, Mr. President, to have found space in his address to say a few words about Boko and even Ashaman. Mr. Speaker, the President, in his delivery, created a certain impression, and I want to set the record straight. He made the argument that he had done certain equipment purchases, including vehicles, ammunition, etc., to the security services. And this is found on page 9 of the message on the state of the nation. And Mr. Speaker, here what the President simply says is that, and it's a bullet point, provided more equipment, vehicles, ammunition to security services than any other government in the Fourth Republic. Than any other government in the Fourth Republic. These are the words of Mr. President. Then, Mr. Speaker, on page 13, Mr. President then went on to list some of the equipment he has provided for the security agencies. Let me start with the army, Mr. Speaker. Mr. President told this House that the army has received 104 armored personnel carriers, 70 utility troop carrying vehicles, 20 armored vehicles, 85 assorted Toyota vehicles, 50 Ankai buses, 40 Jeep G8 vehicles, and some explosive ordnance disposal equipment. This is the evidence he provided to demonstrate that he has retooled the armed forces and the other security services more than any other government in the Fourth Republic. Mr. Speaker, I dare say that this statement does not represent the truth. This statement was misleading. It has no basis, and I will demonstrate that in a moment, Mr. Speaker. Let me refer you, Mr. Speaker, to the achievements of President Mahama and President Mills in the security sector in terms of retooling them. Mr. Speaker, in terms of retooling them, this statement listed the achievements and the equipment they are supposed to have bought for the security agencies. Mr. Speaker, I take you to memory lane, down memory lane, and I'd like to remind the Defense Minister in particular that between 2012, Mr. Speaker, and 2014, the police service alone, Ghana Police Service took delivery of over 1,424 vehicles. 1,424 vehicles. This is unprecedented in the history of our country. And yet President Akufo-Addo stood before this House and said because he had bought 70 buses, 100 APCs for the armed forces, he has done better than any other government in the Fourth Republic. Mr. Speaker, this is not true. Once again, let me demonstrate to the Defense Minister in particular, he should send word back to the President that the statement he made was misleading. The President could not say a word about the Ghana National Fire Service. But, Mr. Speaker, between 2014 and 2016 alone, the Ghana National Fire Service took delivery of over 200 firefighting vehicles. Throughout the 6 years that President Akufo-Addo has been in government, he has not provided the fire service with even a single firefighting engine. And yet he says his achievements in the security sector are not comparable to any other government in the Fourth Republic. This is not true, Mr. Speaker, but let me speak directly to the Defense Minister. And I'm referring to the budget statement read by Setepe in 2015. In the 2016 budget statement, Mr. Speaker, I thought I had appealed to my brother not to interject.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to plead that if he does not want me to interject, he should stop mentioning my name. He should just make his point. If he makes my name, I will interject. Otherwise, I will prove to you. Otherwise, I will prove to you that President Akufo-Addo's record is not comparable to any other person.
Mr. Speaker,
honorable member, as much as I employ members to allow the speakers free rein to speak without interruption, please don't mention members' name. No. Once you mention his name, it means the person will have the right to either respond or anything. Please, you can make your statement, not necessarily mention the person's name.
Very well, Mr. Speaker, I take a cue. But let me support my arguments with hardcore evidence. And I have in my hand, Mr. Speaker, the budget statement and economic policy delivered by Honorable Setekwe in 2016. In 2016. And in 2016, Mr. Speaker, page 143, paragraph 784, this is what Mr. Tekwe told this Honorable House. Mr. Speaker, GAF acquired Diamond surveillance aircraft, the Mi-171 helicopters, Casa 295 troop carrier aircraft, and the construction of new ultramodern hangars in Accra and Takoradi. 4 Z9 helicopters from China were acquired specifically to support Ghana Gas Company. Then, Mr. Speaker, he goes on. At paragraph 789, he spoke as follows. Mr. Speaker, GAF is undergoing restructuring to ensure that there is a military barracks in every region. The army is currently based in 6 out of the 10 regions of the country and being reorganized from 2 to 3 commands, i.e., the Southern Command, Central Command, and the Northern Command. So, Mr. Speaker, if we have 10 mechanized battalion today, 11 mechanized battalion today, and 3 commands, Southern, Central, and Northern Command, I want to remind President Akufo-Addo that he didn't initiate these projects. These were projects initiated by the NDC. The NDC bequeathed them to him, and when he comes before this House to deliver a State of the Nation address, he should be mindful of the achievements we chalked. Government is a continuum, so he shouldn't just take credit and create the impression that he has outperformed all other governments under the Fourth Republic. This is the evidence, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to further state that the President added that the police now has an air wing, and so that is unprecedented. We should applaud him. We would applaud him, but I should remind him that under the NDC, the Marine unit of the police service was set up for the first time in our history. The FPU was established for the first time in our history. Police visibility is nothing new. In fact, that is a policy that was rolled out under the NDC. I took part in the implementation process, Mr. Speaker. The one who actually mooted the idea, Inspector General Mohammed Al-Hassan, and we as the policy wing of government accepted his initiative, and today we have police visibility. So President Akufo-Addo should be reminded that that is a policy that is being continued. It is not unprecedented by any stretch of imagination. But Mr. Speaker, more importantly, and I will mention the name of the Minister for Defense, because when he took his time to debate on Friday, Mr. Speaker, he made a statement to the effect that salaries of soldiers and police officers in this country has been tripled. This is a statement attributable directly to him. But Mr. Speaker, once again, this is not a true statement. It is misleading. He has caused outrage amongst the ranks of the military and police. They are very angry with him. And let me demonstrate this. Let me start with the police, Mr. Speaker. In 2020, Mr. Speaker, 2020 November, the police salary was increased. But right after the December election, the salary increment was unilaterally reversed. Mr. Speaker, I have in my hands a publication dated Friday, 18th December 2020. And this is Ghana Web. And I would like to read just a few paragraphs. Yes. Here, the police were very angry about the fact of the reversal of their salary increment. So how can the
Honorable Member get ready to wind up?
So how can the Defense Minister say the salaries of police officers?
Honorable members, you all have the time on your. You see exactly he's exceeding his time. So I'm asking him to please wind up, please.
Let me also note that in respect of the armed forces, the major increment in their salaries happened under the single spine salary structure, which was implemented in 2010 by the Professor Mills Mahama-led administration. 2010. In fact, salaries of soldiers quadrupled. Yes. Salaries quadrupled. salaries of all the security services quadrupled with the implementation of the single spine salary structure.
Honourable member, your time is up.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I'm concluding. In conclusion, it is important to know that the only time the military saw some salary increment was in 2022.
Very well.
But
thank you very much, honourable member.
50% salary increment.
Thank
only
you
50%.
so much.
I thank you for the opportunity.
We will now come to Honourable Moses Anim, a member for Trouble.
Thank you.
Honourable Moses, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak and debate and thank the President for the message on the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, I know for sure that soldiers are not on the single span.
That's a fact.
And that is a fact.
They are not.
Soldiers are on 2-year annual review salary. They are not on the single span. Mr. Speaker, the most significant aspect of the President's message was the assurance and the hope he gave to this country. Mr. Speaker, when a family or a country want to be destroyed, or a society want to be destroyed, just take away hope. And the moment you take away hope or you decimate hope, the country will go to destruction. That assurance alone and the hope that the President gave to this state, that we are not in normal times, yet he is so definite in what he and the government is doing. And he thanked Ghanaians for being obedient to some of the actions and directions of the government. Mr. Speaker, the President made us aware that we should not take the 30-year constitutional Fourth Republic for granted. For granted at all. Because from Gold Coast, Ghana has struggled as to which direction or rule of governance we should take. We've seen the one-party state, we've seen the coup d'etats, we've seen attempted constitutional regimes. But from 7th January 1993, we've been so consistent that we're pursuing this democracy of the Fourth Republic. And for that matter, we should not take it for granted. Even at the verge where we have the other side sitting and directing as the speaker, we've been able to hold this parliament together in some extent, some bipartisan approach. That people thought that it was going to be a doomed situation. But we've been able to understand and accommodated ourselves. And where people were thinking that this 8th parliament is going to be a destructive parliament, this 8th parliament is not going to allow government business to take on. We've been able to accommodate each other. With some infractions, some little infractions that came in, some physical struggling that came in, yet we've been able to establish and demonstrate that we are together as a nation, and we shouldn't take that for granted. Mr. Speaker, the President said that any time at all Parliament is restored into its rightful position, that is when the power to the people prevails. Where the power to the people prevails, where delegation of power to the people prevails. And I want to remind this House that that hope and assurance that the President gave, for me, is so significant. That we need to uphold and get together and move in a bipartisan manner, so that at the end of the day, we will deliver for our mandate for this country. Mr. Speaker, the President mentioned, and I want to put it this way, that in this era of COVID, and in this post-COVID era, if you want to say so, countries that will survive are those that will increase their import substitutions. Mr. Speaker, and that is very significant. And when he mentioned the items or the commodities that we are supposed to increase our domestic production on, he mentioned fish. And Mr. Speaker, ever since we entered the ministry, with the support of the President and the Vice President, we realized that the policy of 2008, which is the Fisheries and Aquaculture policy, have been overtaken by treaties and conventions, overtaken by emerging issues in fisheries and our marine space. We've revised the 2008 Fisheries and Aquaculture policy. We've validated them and we've gotten the approval of cabinet to roll the policy out. This policy hitherto was a 5 focal point policy. We've increased it to 11 focal points. Today, marine is a standalone, inland is a standalone, aquaculture is a standalone, and we are saying that lagoons are supposed to be brought to life. Lagoons are supposed to be brought to life, so it will serve as a space or fisheries resources for our fisher folks. Mr. Speaker, we've decoupled post-harvest management from health, from fish health, because fish health is so significant. And as a result, we are developing the fisheries sector such that at the end of the day, we will increase production. Mr. Speaker, as I speak to you, the industrial trough fleet are strictly under a gear regime. Hitherto, the net that they were using had a vertical opening of 40 meters and a circumference opening of 120 meters. They are prohibited from catching pelagics. They are for demersals, the bottom dweller fishes. Today, we've reduced the vertical opening to 10 meters and then the circumference to 60 meters. And I tell you, because we do pre-departure inspection, we do at-sea inspection, we do arrival inspection. Today, cycle is gone forever, and the juveniles are going back to the marine space, and they are being developed, and they are graviding, and they are spawning to increase production. Mr. Speaker, as I speak to you, we've developed our women. There's what we call the Safe Fish Certification and Licensing Class 2 regime. That will brought our women to that level where today you can go in and see a well-packaged fish, a post-harvested, a handling, processing, a well-packaged fish. Mr. Speaker, today the hygienic aspect of post-harvest handling of fish is so good among our women. And you are free to enter anywhere and get a hygienic fish. Fish is very critical and very important. Mr. Speaker, as I speak to you, 2021, because of some of these measures, we were able to produce 628,000 metric tons. The value addition ones are not included. I believe we still have a lot of space to grow. Today, aquaculture is moving very fast. GIZ has bought into the policy of aquaculture for food and jobs. Go to the Western region, we've packaged the women so they can be off-takers, so that the small-scale aquaculture producers, the schools and the prisons are all putting together aquaculture production. And I encourage every member of this parliament, the catfish is not difficult to culture at all. At your backyard in small drums, you can easily culture the catfish. And when you have catfish at your home, you wouldn't go buying fish. At the end of the day, we will reduce importation of fish. So, members, go into catfish production, go into tilapia production, and I believe strongly we'll be able to reduce our importation of fish. Mr. Speaker, as I speak to you today, the licensing regime has been streamlined.
As I speak to you today, we bring in the automation of the premise. Elimina, the structures are ready. Go to Choco. We're targeting about 50 of them for now, and it is on board. Our VMS is working. We are introducing an electronic monitoring system with a real-time situation, with a removable disk that will capture the video images and the VMS data. Mr. Speaker, we are doing all these things to ensure two things: conservation and sustainable management of the fishery resources. And it is this way that we can easily channel the fisheries resources, manage the fishery resources, ensure that we increase fishery infrastructure production. Mr. Speaker, the hatchery system has been so improved. Today you can get fingerlings that will give you an attempt of 99% viability. And it is to ensure that we produce more fish to reduce importation.
Honourable Member, may you wind up?
In winding up, Mr. Speaker, all that I want to conclude to say that the countries that will survive post-COVID are countries that will increase their import substitution. And I encourage every Ghanaian and every member of this parliament to go into aquaculture and ensure that we will produce fish for ourselves. I thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
I thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. It is now the turn of Honorable Dr. Sandari. Yes, Honorable, you have the floor now. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the debate on thanking His Excellency the President for the State of the Nation address. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that in as much as I thank the President for coming to this House, his message delivered was uninspiring and really not representative of the state of the nation Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the state of any nation can be measured in many ways. You can use the state of the economy. You can use the state of the health of the people to talk about the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, I listened keenly to His Excellency the President. And I will say that I was not impressed because he failed to tell us the state of the people, the health state of the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, if you make reference to messages that were delivered by His Excellency President Mills, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, in their statements, they talked about the state of the people of this country. In their messages, you find them talk about maternal mortality rate. They talked about child mortality, infant mortality, and the life expectancy of the people. Mr. Speaker, when you are talking about the state of the people or the health state, these are what we are looking for. Not the kind of things the President was mentioning under the health sector. Mr. Speaker, we all know that at the time that the President was delivering his message, the state of this nation was and is described as a state of health sector crisis. Mr. Speaker, a state of vaccine shortage that the nation Ghana is in a state where our children, newborn children, cannot have access to basic fundamental health needs like routine vaccines. And Mr. Speaker, not only that, confronted with measles outbreak. And at the time that the president was delivering, his men in charge of health did not brief him well. He followed the tangent of the health minister, who said that, thanks to God, we didn't have mortalities due to measles. And just after that, the Pediatric Society of Ghana came out with a statement that, no, President, you may have to check. We treat the people. We diagnose the children. And some have died. In fact, there was one professor who knows it all about measles and said, look, from what we saw and what we treated, it's possible that the children that died, the ones we diagnosed measles, and they died, were due to measles. So, who is the one telling the truth? The president or the doctors, the professors who are treating the measles cases that they diagnosed? And they stated that over 80% of the samples they took from these children, up till date, the results cannot be produced. Mr. Speaker, Ghana, that even testing for measles, we can't do that. What kind of state are we? Even measles. Under this president, under the MPP government, state of Basa can't even test for measles. That measles, just testing for measles and giving results to health professionals to be able to treat well. That went to Wahala. And one of my colleagues, they say that all is well. How can all be well? How can all be well? With measles outbreak, in a state where we cannot get vaccines for our children. And when you ask, they say, oh, it's due to COVID-19. Now, the question we ask, this COVID-19, did it only come to Ghana? Mr. Speaker, COVID-19, is it only Ghana that COVID-19 affected? What about our neighboring countries? Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo. That today, Nigeria has become our savior. We cannot get vaccine due to COVID-19. Nigeria can supply us vaccine when they're also affected by COVID-19. That cannot be. I believe, and Mr. Speaker, I believe you also believe that it can only be due to management. It can only be due to lack of planning. It's due to lack of prioritization of vaccine management. This one we should spare COVID-19. At least it contributed. But if other countries affected by COVID-19 can get, we should not be giving excuse that the state we find ourselves, we cannot get vaccines for our children is due to COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, the President talked about national health insurance and said that in December, by 31st December, the scheme paid a total claim of over 1 billion Ghana cedis to health service providers. Mr. Speaker, anybody who understands basic mathematics, what we teach junior high and whatever, you see, you can't make this kind of statement. And if you were in the school, you write like that, they will fail you. Mr. Speaker, 1.014 billion out of what? The denominator is always important. How much does government owe health providers? And out of that, you are now paying 1.014 billion Ghana cedis. That question has not been answered by the President. Yet he expected us to clap for him. Mr. Speaker, the truth and the state of the nation is that cash and carry is back.
And Dr. Sandari, the truth is that your time is getting up.
Yes, I'm landing on the true state of Ghana. That the true state is that cash and carry is back. Mr. Speaker, our medical stores in the various health facilities are empty. You can't find basic commodities. So the truth is that it's not only vaccines that are in shortage, but essential medicines, essential commodities for healthcare are also in shortage in our various health facilities. And this is what MPP government can do to this country. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes. Let me now turn to the man from Dunkwao. Honorable Dr. Festus Kofi. Honorable, if you are 10, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute on the State of the Nation address delivered by the President and the motion on the floor. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the President indicated the progress made in the housing sector, especially in the security unit. But the 2021 population census estimated the housing deficit to 1.8 million, compared to 2010 of 2.8 million units. This reduction was as a result of the inflow or the flood of the private sector in the real estate sector and comprehensive and deliberate strategy by the government and its related agencies to reduce this housing unit. The government has undertaken a number of housing projects. Among them include the following: the Barracks Registration Project, Phase 1 and Phase 2, the Military Housing Project, Phase 1 and Phase 2, and the Ghana Military Academy Infrastructure are all expected to be completed within a year. Mr. Speaker, 320 units located at Ghana National Police Training Service at Tesano, Phase 3 and Phase 4, will also be completed, and we have 504 housing units involved. About 100 court houses have also been done for the judges. TDC is also constructing about 139 blocks comprising about 3,016 housing units. State Housing Corporation Company has also undertaken a number of projects that goes beyond the security service. If you go to urban premium projects, comprising of 40 units at Adenta is completed. Koforidia affordable housing project of 342 housing is also progressing steadily. Project is also progressing about 120 units at Sevilla and Poregu, all at the various stages of completion. Construction of 121 2 to 3 bedroom apartments and townhouses at Ridge Airport and Roman Ridge are also ongoing. Construction of 68 housing units at Ntebbe under the redevelopment program is also progressing. These are rare and verifiable projects across the country. As if that is not enough, this year, not all the people in this country can acquire properties. We also have to look at the youth and the vulnerable ones. The government has launched National Rental Assistance Scheme this year by our Excellency Dr. Alhaji Babawuya. And the entire policy objective is to increase access to safe, secure, and affordable rental housing for the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, why do we describe the state of the nation as disingenuous, as deceitful, as unreal? The president made some admissions. Yes, there are some challenges, economic challenges, and he also came out of how to solve those problems. Among the challenges that the president admitted is high inflation rates, the weakened cedi, and above all, the debt exchange program that is ongoing. Ghana have had our inflation move from 7.8 in 2020, and by December 2021, this figure was about 10%. 3 months in February, it was 15, it moved to 30% by June 2022, and by October, the figure was 45, and we ended the year with 54% of the inflation. But the question then is, what are the causes of this inflation? We've heard at various programs by our colleagues that it is because of Bank of Ghana printed 40-something billion cedis into the system that has caused this inflation. But Mr. Speaker, the president indicated, one, that we need to reduce our import bills. Last 2 years, the import bill for the country was 7.6. Within 2 years, it has gone up by 13.6 billion. If that were to be investment flow, fine, but essential commodities like rice, meat, oil, even wood, we import into this country. Mr. Speaker, let me just give you some few statistics about things that we import in this country that is not helping us. Rice and cereals, $522 million. Chicken and fish, 571. 721 million. Meat, 35. Vegetables, 34.9. We have wood, 297. Wheat, 139 million. And palm oil, $136 million into this country. Why do you have to increase our import for rice? We need to develop the taste for our local rice. That is the only way we can reduce the pressure on the city. We have colleagues here who are into rice cultivation. I know Honorable Akando is into it. We have our former Deputy of Road and Highways, Dr. Odun, who is also into rice production. And we have few of them also production. Why do we want to develop taste for foreign products? Another factor that also caused the inflation is also the cedi depreciation. The cedi depreciation from 6.4% from January, by the end of the year, it was 13%. Almost 100%. And if we are importing 13 billion from outside the country that are all we use the dollar to import, what do you expect to happen in our cedi depreciation? From Ghana Statistical Service, about 33.9% of our current inflation was as a result of imported inflation. So we need to reduce our import bills. It was also stated by the President that we must also increase the local capacity to produce certain products. And these are the rice and the cereals and the rest. Meaning that the President has preferred solution to this, our inflation. We should reduce our import bills. He didn't say only in the short term, but the medium and the long term. Coupled with the increase in the production of our local products, it means we are really solving the inflation. The President indicated in a four-fold strategy. 2 is what is addressing this inflationary issue. The third factor that accounted for the inflation, obviously, is the high import oil prices. We also saw how the price of oil went. The fourth factor, which is also a fact, is the COVID. And after COVID, what is the next factor? After COVID, what is the next factor? The next factor is the Ukraine and the Russian war. So why do you attribute the high inflation to Bank of Ghana printing so much money into the system? Bank of Ghana, let me put it on record, apart from GR and the audit service, is the institution that we have the best accountants we have in this country. So you cannot rubbish them. And whatever they do is more of professional base. They don't just print money. Mr. Speaker, there are 4 conditions under which Bank of Ghana can print money. One, which is basic, is the replacement of the mutilated notes. 2 is any time there's a GDP growth, the percentage equivalent of which is also money is also created to the system. The third one is against turbulence or for contingency basis. That is done every country between 10 to 50%. And the fourth one, which we all know, is the CD, the stipulated loan that we use to purchase our cocoa. The foreign currency is used to preserve our currency in the terms of reserves. And this CD equivalent is what is printed to buy the cocoa. This is done. And it has been doing this ever. So I'm surprised that our colleagues are saying Bank of Ghana has printed cash, Bank of Ghana has printed cash. This is how the various conditions under which Bank of Ghana can print money. And the reserves that we use is what has been supporting us. In 2021, Ghana, we recorded 9.56 import cover with a reserve of 10 billion. That was very unprecedented.
Honorable Festus, your time is getting up.
So
let's wind up, please.
So, Mr. Speaker, the last bit is the idea that Bank of Ghana has gone beyond the 10% mandate. Mr. Speaker, Bank of Ghana has the constitutional mandate to protect this country. And since 2002, since this act came to being, we have never been able to achieve the 10% ratio that is in. If you can go back to 2001 to 2000, up to date, not up, it is only in 2007 that we were able to achieve the 6.75. So how come at that time we didn't attribute a problem to Bank of Ghana? Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Let me now come to Honorable Senator Rollins. Honorable, you have 10 minutes. The floor is yours now.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the debate on the history of the state of the nation. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, the state of the nation. I just got a little bit confused because I think the first 20 minutes or so of the President's address were based on historical events. So I wasn't really sure whether we're talking about the current state or the past. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, in the President's address, he said that the SONA was to give a fair account of the state of our nation. I have to give an account, and I quote, I have to give an account of the state of our economy, our governance, of our national culture and attitudes. Which is why I was a bit confused about the initial statements with regards to the current affairs of our nation. Mr. Speaker, in previous addresses, he mentioned election expenditure copiously, and I had hoped that he was going to do same this time around with regards to the 2020, since we were delving into historic. That didn't happen. Mr. Speaker, the President gave us one small sentence on Galamsey, and his contribution to that was exactly as I say. Mr. Speaker, we continue the fight against Galamsey with the support of security agencies in the short term. In previous addresses, he even went as far as mentioning the turbidity of some of our water bodies. And in science, when you want to show that you have actually made an improvement in something, you use your previous and you compare it to the current. And one would have expected that the same measurements or the criteria that were used to determine that the government was winning the fight against Galamsey would have been repeated to give the public a fair understanding that indeed progress was being made. But sadly enough, this was not to be the case. And so one still wonders what aspect of the fight it is that is going on and how far we are winning this fight. Mr. Speaker, in also mentioning the Galamsey, the fight against Galamsey, there was no mention with regards to arrests or convictions or even confiscation of equipment that was being used to destroy our water bodies and our natural resources. Mr. Speaker, over 15 paragraphs were dedicated to how the government handled the COVID pandemic in 2020. Over 15 paragraphs, and yet not one mention with regards to what was going to happen to the funds that were realigned and used for COVID that were supposed to be used for the re-engineering of the drains in Greater Accra. And only a few days ago, we had one main downpour which resulted in severe flooding in some areas in Accra, not giving our constituents enough reassurance that indeed the government is doing enough to resolve some of these matters that are of great concern. Mr. Speaker, the President made reference to the digitization and digitalization of so many of the agencies in Ghana and mentioned the NIA. Sadly enough, as much as he boasted about these achievements, he neglected to mention the deficit of 3.5 million cards that were held up in a bonded warehouse as a result of financial issues. Nor did he mention the fact that 2.5 million Ghanaians have still not had their cards printed. This, Mr. Speaker, is something that borders on our national security, because to deprive eligible Ghanaian citizens of the right to register to vote can create tensions and undermine the gains that we've made in the last 30 years of this Fourth Republic. And to assure Ghanaians that the government was going to do a lot more to ensure that Ghanaians who were eligible to or who are eligible to vote will not be disenfranchised as a result of any unfair laws that will be put in place, nor because of the delays from the NIA. When the President mentioned that Ghana was ranked as #1 tourist destination in West Africa, I found that quite encouraging and decided to look up the report from the World Economic Forum. And to my dismay, the report presents Ghana as 101 out of 117 countries with regards to tourist destinations. Mr. Speaker, I mention this with great concern because I must ask whether those who are providing the data to the President are providing data that speaks to the global condition, that speaks to the African condition, and does not skew data to give a false impression of Ghana doing better than she actually is. The state of the nation is not to brag about things, but to also know that you are aware of what is going wrong and what your government is putting in place to resolve and to reassure your citizens that things are being put in place to make their lives better. Mr. Speaker, on page 13, the President made reference to the fact that a lot of gains have been made with regards to the Accra Initiative. And I will quote the statement over here in order to make reference to what I'm about to say. In this second half of the paragraph, he says, we are working with our partners in the region to strengthen regional cooperation in the fight against the terrorist menace in West Africa, hence our commitment to the Accra Initiative. Mr. Speaker, the President's recent utterances on his visit to the U.S. certainly did not help in the cooperation with members of the Accra Initiative with regards to what he said about Burkina Faso. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the country that poses the greatest threat to our internal security is the one that is on our northern border, Burkina Faso. And unfortunately, those utterances that were made undermined the relations between Burkina Faso and Ghana, which are not healthy given the fact that we rely on intelligence accurately and timely given to us from our sister nation in order to ensure that our troops are in the right place at the right time and we are making sure that we're keeping our citizens safe. Mr. Speaker, the President needs to address this issue and as quickly as possible rectify the damage that has been done to this relationship that we share with Burkina Faso in order to actually ensure that the Accra Initiative achieves its desired objective. Mr. Speaker, as Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, and given the fact that the President presides over all the ministries, it was unfortunate that he made no mention about the current state of our prisons. Mr. Speaker, he made mention about the police and helicopters that have been provided and mentioned how the state of security in this country is certainly improved because motorcycle riders actually stop at red lights. Mr. Speaker, when we're talking about civilians being killed in their homes in some regions of Ghana because of ethnic conflicts, when we're speaking about people being robbed in their homes, people's phones being snatched right in the middle of Accra, to not make mention of other facilities, of other agencies, was quite unfortunate. We have over 40% above capacity crowding in our prisons. In the NPP's manifesto with regards to security, there was a promise to deal with the issue of separating the convicted and the remand inmates. That has still not happened. Mr. Speaker, I would urge the President to make an urgent visit to at least the Nsawam prison to see the state of affairs there. Also, to remind the President that the NDC started work on Nsawam to expand the facilities, and none of that has continued since he took over. He's in his second term, and as a matter of fact, the second half of his second term. It's important that he actually addresses the matter of the expansion of the Nsawam prison in order to be able to continue what was started under President Mahama when the NDC was in office. Mr. Speaker, I believe that as a lawyer who's well known for his position on human rights, he more than any other should appreciate that it is certainly an abuse of the rights of human beings to be in a remand facility that is overcrowded and to be provided with substandard facilities and not have that means of even a dignified existence, even if they have been convicted of crimes and they are in prison. Mr. Speaker, this needs to be addressed with immediate effect.
Honourable Member, your time is getting up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In conclusion, the fact that we have seen an increase in the tensions with regards to civil-military relations is something that the President should have spoken to, given the fact that we've had several incidents of clashes between our armed forces and our civilians, which speaks to an underlying criminality and makes one wonder whether perhaps the police service has been overwhelmed, because per our Constitution, the armed forces or the military is not to be called in unless the police are overwhelmed with what it is that they are meant to do. Is there an issue with regards to the training? Is there an issue with regards to how they are deployed, the police, within our various communities? These are issues that the President should have spoken to. Our very security, Our internal security is key given what is happening on our external borders. And if some of these issues with
Honourable
regards
member,
to...
your time is up.
Thank you very much. Civil-military relations need to be addressed as a matter of urgency in order to protect and preserve the sanctity of peace and stability in our country. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Let me now call Honourable Jalula. Honourable Jalula. Yes. Honourable, the floor is yours now. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for recognizing me and giving me the opportunity to speak on the motion titled that this Honorable House thanks His Excellency the President for the message on the state of the nation which was delivered to this Honorable House on Wednesday, 8th March 2023. Mr. Speaker, the President is enjoined by the Constitution, Article 67, to present a message on the state of the nation at the beginning of each session and also at the end of the Parliament. And Mr. President, having been a member of this House for 3 terms, expectedly came around to deliver a message. And in doing so, Mr. Speaker, His Excellency the President spoke on the true issues confronting the nation today. Mr. Speaker, it is a trite knowledge that across the globe, every economy is suffering due to the impact of COVID-19 and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Our brothers on the other side do not really want to hear that. Experts all over the world, across the globe, including the Bretton Woods institutions, believe that this double whammy or twin whammies have dealt negatively on all the economies of the world. Mr. Speaker, until the advent of COVID-19, Ghana was doing really well. In some 40 years, we never had a surplus balance of trade. But under the rulership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, between 2017 and 2019, Ghana had balance of trade surpluses. Again, by January 2020, the inflation rate had come down to a single digit of 7.8. With your permission, Mr. Speaker, let me just quote page 4 of His Excellency's message on the state of the nation. And I read, "This is what I told this House on 20th February 2020. And I quote, Mr. Speaker, in 3 years, we have reduced inflation to its lowest level, which is 7.8% in January 2020, since 1992. For the first time in over 40 years, we have had a fiscal deficit below 5% of GDP for 3 years in a row. For the first time in over 20 years, the balance of trade, that is the difference between export and import, has been in surplus for 3 consecutive years. Our current account deficit is shrinking. Interest rates are declining, and the average annual rate of depreciation of the cedi is at its lowest for any first-term government in the Fourth Republic." Unquote, Mr. Speaker. This is how His Excellency the President managed the economy until the advent of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, then came the COVID-19, where everybody got panicky because we didn't have any signs on how to manage it. The cities, big cities, were partially locked down. Our land borders were closed, airports closed, and that resulted in the spending of the government to keep our people hygiene by supplying free water, subsidized electricity, paid workers when they were not going to work. And Mr. Speaker, we went onto our phones, and particularly I went to worldometer.info every minute to see the rate of infections in the world. The total infections, the total deaths, the active cases, recovered cases, and etc. Today, people who got panicky because of this situation are now blaming the president blaming the president on how he managed the situation. And we all saw on the international media how people were dying. But the president didn't want that to happen. I do not want to remind people of the pain they went through when their relatives lost their lives to the pandemic. But it is true that we lost sons and daughters of the soil to pandemic. And the reason we acted the way we did. Mr. Speaker, despite all the challenges that I have recounted, the president managed to do a lot of work when we come to the development of the country. Under the infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, it is evident across the length and breadth of the country. The president has managed to build 1D, 1Fs in so many districts and constituencies. And I'm privileged to be one of the MPs here who have benefited from the 1D, 1F project. We have a cassava factory that has been put up for us. Under the infrastructure, a lot of classrooms, chiefs compounds, clinics, lecture rooms have been put up for our little ones to get a place to learn. Mr. Speaker, again, if you come to the intangibles, I will leave the road sector for my boss who is more competent enough to make a comment. I've heard my brothers at the other side shouting road. It is trite knowledge that under the rulership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we have constructed, if you like, we have built 11,975 kilometers of roads, as compared to the NDC's paltry record of 4,600 and something. Yes, the evidence is there. Mr. President annexed the white book, and you have a copy. You can go and check. Nobody can dispute that. When you come to the soft assets that Mr. President did for the country, the first one I want to mention is the free SHS. Mr. President, I am here because I enjoyed free SHS. Back in the days, the northern regions had free SHS, and the reason I managed to go to school. Today, under the administration of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, every school-going child in Ghana can go to school free of charge until they finish SHS. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, beyond that, today we have digitalized almost all our processes. If you go to NHIA, where I have worked before, you don't need to walk to the offices to renew or to subscribe. You sit in the comfort of your home and you go on your phone and you are able to enroll or to renew. If you come to the application of passports, birth certificates, DVLA, everything has been digitalized thanks to the efforts of Dr. E. Bawumia, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, who has been championing digitalization in Ghana. We now have digital address system, port automation, and what have you. Today, the president has managed to bring Dumsor under control. Whereas in other jurisdictions, especially in South Africa, where recently they have appointed somebody to be a Dumsor minister, electricity minister, to be able to deal with their Dumsor issues. Mr. Speaker, the president has brought peace or has maintained peace in this country. Our borders are protected and we have internal peace. But one thing I will say is that we need to respect the men in uniform. In the past, it was scary for somebody to even walk past a police officer or border guard in those days or a military officer. Today, what do we see? People want to even snatch the caps of the uniformed men, even take their guns from them. I will expect Ghanaians to give respect to people in uniform because they are there for us. Mr. Speaker, a lot is there to be said, but let me say that beyond all these challenges, Mr. President is employing. He has employed a lot in the education sector, the health sector, local government sector, even the temporary employment of forestry assistants, the YEA. And as we speak now, the process is ongoing to recruit more teachers into GES. Mr. Speaker, I would want to conclude by saying that despite all the things, the negative things that has plagued the economy of Ghana, the president has managed to keep the ship sailing up to date, and Ghanaians should have hope and keep faith with him. And I want to say that there's light at the tunnel. The IMF have had an agreement, staff level agreement. You've exhausted your time. Mr. Speaker, IMF has had a staff level agreement with IMF, and hopefully in April, the IMF Executive Board will approve this in. Mr. Let me conclude by saying that the president has secured our borders between us and our neighboring countries, and the relationship between Ghana and Burkina Faso remains very strong. But let me say, Isaiah 40:31 says, "But those who, I quote, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on the wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary." Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable, are you called Thomas? Thomas Ampiniako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but I'm disappointed you don't know my first name. So, Thomas, a very optimistic Thomas. I know you are familiar with Ampiniako, but my first name is Thomas. Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity, there is this popular story about a student who prepared very well for an examination, thinking that the topic that was going to appear in the exams was about the types of rainfall. So he chewed everything he knew about rainfall. But when he appeared in the exams room, to his disappointment, the question that appeared was the tropical rainforest. So this student was found wanting. But he said, either way, there is rain in the question that appeared. And so he said, one may ask what is rain. Then he started pouring everything that he had learned about rain and wrote extensively about types of rainfall. But when the exams results came, the examiner wrote deviated. That is exactly what His Excellency the President did on the floor here. Yeah. He was here based on Article 67 of our Constitution. And the article tells us that the President shall, at the beginning of each session of Parliament and before a dissolution of Parliament, deliver to Parliament a message on the state of the nation. Yes. We all heard the President. In fact, about 15 minutes into his address, we were wondering whether he was delivering the state of the nation, Ghana, or somewhere else. And he had chewed all the State of the Nation address he presented to this floor in 2020. So you heard him quoting, reproducing his own address that he had learned previously for 2020. And I wasn't surprised that Honorable Jalula did the same thing right now. Instead of telling us the current state of our nation, he was telling us the inflation rate for 2020 at 7.8. For your information, the current rate of inflation in this country is 53%, way above 50%. So why are you not telling us that, but you are quoting inflation rate so many years ago? The president missed an opportunity to carry Ghanaians to appreciate the situation in which we are now and to help him get us out of it. Mr. Speaker, earlier speakers have mentioned that at the time that the president was delivering his address, soldiers were in Ashaiman and they were abusing the rights of the citizens of Ashaiman. A soldier had been killed in Ashaiman. The president did not see the need to mention that. In the same week that the president was here to present the state of Ghana, the nation Ghana, a construction company, a Brazilian construction company, the contractor, had laid off more than 1,500 construction workers in the Ashanti region. Unemployment is worsening in Ashanti region alone. The president did not see the need to talk about that. Our cedi has depreciated significantly, and today, the dollar is selling in excess of 12 cedis officially. The president did not see the need to talk about these things. Yes. So he missed an opportunity. But Mr. Speaker, my recommendation to this House is that the next time we are bringing a president like that to come and address us on the state of the nation, let us send him a template and tell him that these are the things you should talk about. So we should help the president not to deviate, so that at least he will get some small marks. Mr. Speaker, our friends and indeed the president have been talking about the state of the economy in 2017, 2018, 2019. There is a very basic principle in economics that talks about the response lag. Yes. And the response lag tells us that whenever you implement any economic policy, be it monetary or fiscal, there is a time lag between the time that you implement the policy and the period that the impact of the policy is felt on the economy. You don't implement any economic policy and get the impact on the economy the same year. There is always a time lag. And so all the successes that you are talking about in 2017, 2018, 2019 were the results of the economic policies that were implemented prior to that period. And those were the economic policies of President John Dramani Mahama. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, today we are feeling the impact of the economic policies that were implemented in this country in 2018, 2019, 2020. So we are now feeling the impact of the economic policies of Nanado and Baumia. Yeah. So they should always acknowledge this fact, that whatever policies they are implementing, it will take time for the impact of that policy to be felt in the economy. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the address that the president presented, he was telling us that he has not been reckless. And indeed, on page 6, third paragraph, the president told us that it was government that asked for the COVID funds to be audited, and that I can assure this House that nothing dishonorable was done with the COVID funds. Mr. Speaker, I doubted if the president himself took time to read the report by the Auditor General. If he did, he would have realized that the report indicated that 9,999,444 cedis was spent on providing hot meals during COVID period. And what is striking about this is that they said all this amount was paid by cash. Oh. They did not use the banking systems to settle this. So they carried cash in sacks, 12 million cedis, like that, to go and settle the payment. And what is even more worrying is that retirement for this 12 million cedis was done by only ANA certificate. So somebody took a sheet of paper and a pen and wrote that I, Kwesi Menu, received so much for the provision of this. They did not even retire with receipts. they retired 12 million cedis with honor certificates. If this is not dishonorable, what else can be dishonorable? Yes. The president suggested that he has not been reckless. But Mr. Speaker, the president's and this government's recklessness goes way beyond COVID expenditure. You'll recall that on assumption to the reins of this country, the president chose to appoint 125 ministers. When Ghanaians complained in this house, he told us that the end will justify the means. This is the end. It has truly justified the means. That decision to employ 125 ministers was reckless. So the president has been reckless. Yes. The decision to hire presidential jets for $18,000 an hour for many hours, many days for his trip was reckless. Withdrawal of over 300 million cedis for the so-called National Cathedral was reckless. The decision to spend over 20 billion cedis to collapse banks, when half of that amount could have been used to save the banks, was reckless. Highly reckless. The decision to exclude important debt from the computation of our national debt. In fact, the amount spent on the financial sector cleanup was excluded, ESLA was excluded, Dachi bonds were excluded, just to create artificial space for them to go on borrowing spree was reckless. Yes. So this government has been reckless. Yes. Their failure to go to IMF when everybody advised them to do, the delay has caused us so much. That decision was reckless. This government has been reckless. Yes. The decision to ask the Bank of Ghana to finance your budget deficit in excess of 40 billion cedis in a year was reckless. Yes. To ask the Bank of Ghana to print money for you to do this was reckless. Yes. So Nanado, Dr. Baumia have been very reckless in the management of our economy. Yes. Mr. Speaker, under the watch of Nanado and Baumia, for the first time in our recent history, inflation has exceeded 50%. For the first time in our history, 1 liter of diesel has crossed 20 Ghana cedis. For the first time in our history, we have appointed 125 ministers. For the first time in our history, our currency has hit more than 14 cedis per dollar.
Honorable Ampem, your time is almost
I'm concluding. For the first time in our history, our debt has exceeded 100% of our GDP. For the first time in our history, 7 banks have been collapsed. For the first time in our history, Ghana has been downgraded by all rating agencies to the lowest ever. For the first time in our history, Ghana has lost access to the international bond market. For the first time in our history, Ghana is bankrupt. Mr. Speaker, posterity will judge this government harshly. And at the mention of the names Nanado and Baumia, their descendants will bow down their heads in shame. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, we have had 5 contributors from each side, and that was agreement. Leadership, that was an agreement. So let me come to you, leadership. What is your pressure?
Mr. Speaker, that's about all we have for today.
Lydia, speak up, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, that's about all we have for today. I therefore move that today's proceeding be adjourned to tomorrow. – 10 a.m. in the forenoon. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are ready to work, but obviously, I second the motion.
Mr. Speaker, that will not be part of the records. Leadership agreed. Mr. Speaker, leadership agreed that we would have 5 each. If there is any other thing that my colleague wants us to transact, we are ready to transact that business.
Speaker, the reason I raised that is that this morning we agreed that after the debate we will take some statements. But obviously, well, with both, Mr. Speaker, we can end the day.
Honorable members, I just want to remind you that we are also having a national awards, and some of us may have to be there. So on that note, we will bring proceedings to a close. So you move a motion, please.
Mr. Speaker, we are actually doing this on the behalf of our colleague. He is receiving an award and we are closing early to go and support him. So you don't behave as if we are doing this for ourselves. And you know it. So you don't come here and behave as if we are doing something new.
Yes. Honorable Minority Leadership, may you second the motion?
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Well, honorable members, the motion for adjournment has been moved and it has been seconded. I'll therefore put the question. And the question is, all those in favor that the House adjourn to tomorrow 10 o'clock in the forenoon, say aye. All those against, say no. Honorable members, the ayes have it. The House is accordingly adjourned to tomorrow, the 15th of March 2023 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. The House stands adjourned.